All right, welcome back to another episode of the Proov podcast. I am your host, Amy Beckley, founder of Proov. And as you all know, I had a personal battle with infertility that led me to invent Proov to help women give them more information about their bodies and their hormones. So it is my extreme pleasure to be joined here by Anna, who is the founder and inventor of the Hormone University. So, Anna, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you founded the Hormone University.
Thank you so much, Amy, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and we're pursuing the same goal, which is to educate women about hormone health and hopefully how they can help themselves and prevent and be their own advocates, right? So my journey started with just fibroids in my early 20s. And after that, I was lucky to get a diagnosis of endometriosis. I was around 27 years old. And luckily, like I said, on average, someone to get an endometriosis diagnosis, the average is about 7 years. So my doctor was one of those kind of classic old style guys who would sit down with you and talk to you for an hour and a half to explain things to you, right?
That's incredible. That's like unheard of now.
It's so unheard of. Of course, he retired, and he happens to be a close friend of my family, and I'm forever grateful for all the care and time that he put into me and every patient he had. So I was diagnosed. I had really painful PMS. And I kind of spent about 1 week or 2 weeks out of the month in pain. So a very long story short, but maybe not that short, I ended up having in total 5 surgeries with endometriosis. So really tough. And I think one thing that I want to make clear to anyone who listens is that be careful with stress. Stress can have a major impact. It's like a chemical tsunami to our bodies. And I realized that about 6 months before I got like a really bad endometriosis crisis, I was usually very stressed in my life. So yeah, 5 surgeries in total. The last one was just 2 years ago, where the pain was so unbearable. I couldn't stand up. I looked about 5 months pregnant, and I couldn't sleep. So it was just basically impossible to live. It was really truly unbearable. So they basically discovered I had infiltration in my colon, and that meant that they had to perform a colon resection, a full hysterectomy. Everything was completely infiltrated with endometriosis, and that led into, of course, surgical menopause from one day to the next.
Yeah.
So, Amy, look, this was the pain of my life, right? I was going through this for about 12, 13 years of my life. And, it affected my professional life. It affected my personal life. I wanted to have a family. And, it got to the point where we tried IVF. I was married at the time. And the doctor was like, with IVF, you might have a 10% chance of conceiving. And that was a huge slap on our faces. And so this whole story is really to explain that I realized I had no clue about hormonal health, and I had no clue how to take care of myself. And I was also suffering in silence. So I'm really happy that people like you and me have this podcast, because it's so crucial, so crucial to give this information to women out there. So my whole story led me to to become a volunteer at the Endometriosis Foundation of America, where I'm now chair of the advisory board, and then led me to create Hormone University, which is the first online platform and destination for anything that's hormonal health and wellness.
That's great. I mean, it's unfortunate that you had to kind of go through what you went through to bring this knowledge to women. I kind of want to go back on your story. So you said you found out pretty early, like early 20s or so. Um, did you do anything at that point to try to, I know there's no cure to endometriosis, but to try to prevent it from progressing, or was it more like pain management? Like, is there things that you learned later in life where you're like, man, if I could go back to my 23-year-old self when I got that diagnosis, and that's in my story, I've had 7 losses, and I always go back to, if I had just known this information, could I have had more kids, and could they be here, and then not, and it's like something that I go through constantly. So part of me is like, I want to invent this technology to help other women not have to live through the same pain that I went through, because education is power. It is so powerful to know. And so, endometriosis, like you said, is one of those things that we don't diagnose. It takes up to 7 years, and it requires surgery. I mean, I've had surgery to remove endometriosis before I had my son, and that was contributing to my body not ovulating very well because I had it on my ovaries. And so it's a very common problem that does get misdiagnosed. And it's amazing what a little bit of education could do. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, I'm really sorry you went through it. And I think that, they say it's 1 in 10 women. At Hormone University, we speak to doctors all the time, and actually they believe it's much higher than that. And then you add other stuff like PCOS, which we're doing a full week about this week, in fact, and so many other thyroid issues, etc. So going back to your question, Amy, well, I wish you had been there at the time, and I would have known about Proov. So, look, I tried everything, and I was one of those people that I would read. I would call endometriosis experts from all over the world, and nutrition as well. Unfortunately, in my case, I could not prevent it. And like I said earlier, I think there is a strong link to the stress we go through in life as women. And I had a pretty good, kind of demanding job. I was growing in my career. I was doing really well. And I think that definitely had a major effect. So my survival mechanism was about taking painkillers and trying not to have sugar, not to, reduce alcohol, and basically, dairy and gluten and all of that. Of course, I tried all of that and take all the supplements you could imagine, but unfortunately, it didn't work for me. And surgery after surgery, I think the one thing that I learned, so my doctor was in Spain and I was living in London at the time. So I think one of the mistakes I made was not to, basically one of the surgeries, the doctor, I don't think, was a true expert in removing endometriosis. And I think he burnt my follicles, and my chances of becoming pregnant decreased so much after that surgery. So I can't imagine how many women go through this. And that's one of the things that I always say to people, when they come to me, do your homework on who is taking care of you.
Yeah, no, this is really, really important. We always tell women, don't use Proov, don't use these things as a replacement for medical advice, more of a conversation starter, because it's really important that once you have this information and this knowledge, that you go see a professional that knows how to use that knowledge to help you. right? And so I see a lot of women who, go on Amazon and they go on the boards and it's like, oh, what can I do to this, that, or whatever. And it's like, oh, you need, I guess the really popular one right now is Mucinex. You need Mucinex to increase your cervical fluid so that you can conceive. So they're all out there buying Mucinex. And I'm like, well, you don't know what Mucinex actually does. It could be preventing something else from happening. I don't know. But just don't blindly treat things based off of knowledge, but take that, write it down, and then go see a healthcare professional to really help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And find out things like, how many patients have they treated with your own condition, right? And I think that's just so powerful. It will just give you that safety and that psychological tranquility, right? So yeah, it's really crucial.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of stress, I mean, it is so, so true that, we as women, we're career women. We maybe have, other kids at home. We just have so
Yeah.
much stuff and stress in our lives. And, you put on this like trying to conceive or just, I'm in so much pain. I need to be out of pain. And you almost get in this negative feedback loop where you're like, I just need to chill out, but you can't chill out because you're stressed out. And it's like someone goes, oh, yeah, just relax. You're like, you know what? I can't just relax. It's not like you could turn oh, sorry. I forgot to turn the relax switch on. Okay, now I'm good. Right. So, this is a huge thing that women deal with is high stress. And what do we do about it? And so, we try to collect ways that women can turn that switch off. Like, what can they do to help? Some people take supplements. A big one is ashwagandha. That's really helps with the stress response. Definitely diets, lifestyle, exercise, those kind of things. I mean, there's so much. If you eat a diet in high sugar, it causes inflammation and it causes your body to feel like it's stressed out. But another one is talking to people. Um,
Yeah.
a support program, a psychologist, psychiatrist, like somebody to, help you through these things because they can get bottled up and cause stress. And it is very, very isolating to deal with something so, you know, painful. I can't imagine.
Totally. I'm so glad you're saying that. I'm so glad, Amy, because I think that we were born to be strong, but damn it, we're not that strong. I mean, Jesus, and I think that what you just said about getting help, I wish, okay, that is one thing I wish I'd done for sure. And I only did it, my friends were like, God, Anna, what you went through, the last surgery, 6-hour surgery, colon resection, immediately, surgical menopause. I mean, they opened me up, right? So I tried, my coping mechanism was to kind of not talk about it and just leave it on the side. And then I would be talking to someone like I am now with you, and I would start crying. In fact, I still have to like control myself. So my friends were like, you need to talk to someone. This is not good, And I started getting help, and that, it's been so good to do that. So yeah, don't suffer in silence.
Yeah.
Find a good therapist. Your friends are great therapists too. Find the time to talk to them, connect with them. They're great. They're really great support if you don't want to worry your family or whatever. So yeah, really, really important.
Yeah. I mean, we have a really strong online community because we have a lot of women that are coming to us. They're struggling and they're trying to conceive and they can't. And they can't tell their friends and family because it's not something they want to publicly say. And so, having an online community like Instagram is a really good one because you can have whatever name you want. Isabella TTC 513, right? And you could be totally anonymous, but you have the knowledge and the support system that you need to kind of like, there's other people going through this and I can ask questions and get information.
Yeah, absolutely. We're starting at Hormone University to also create just some conversations around this on Clubhouse, and let's see how it goes. But I think, yeah, that anonymity factor is important. Absolutely.
Yeah. So back to what exactly Hormone University is, and get
Ah,
people excited about this. So you take subjects like PCOS and you like dive into the science. You're like, this is what happens with the hormones during PCOS. Is that kind
right.
of what women can expect?
So what the ho- the mission and the goal of Hormone University is to provide information, but it's to provide clear information and to make it easy to digest so that it's not too scientific. And so what we're doing in the background behind the scenes is to, let's say it's PCOS, we then do our research for quite a while, we to understand how do we explain this in a clear way, and how do we make it, kind of educational for people. So someone might not know they have PCOS, but they might have, unwanted extra hair or weight gain, and they're like, oh my god, what's going on, or acne. So it's just to kind of make that information very, very clear to people so that they can understand what's going on, and offer tips, of course, and answer questions whenever we can. We, of course, have to say to people, you have to go to a doctor. We're not, let's say, a doctor platform. I'm guessing you get the same as well. It's like, what do I do about this? You're like, you need to go to your doctor. We are here to provide as much information as we can.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like you had the extreme pleasure of having a doctor sit down with you for like an hour and a half. Most women get 5 minutes, maybe 10.
I know.
And so if you're dealing with really complex hormonal issues and you're like, yeah, I'm just not feeling well. It's like, all right, the doctors have like this huge list of things that they can look at and labs and like, they try to figure it out, but you only have 5-10 minutes. Whereas if you were to go in the doctor, you'd be like, you know what, I learned about this, I have these symptoms, can you specifically run this panel? That's an educated conversation now that you can use the best, use your time the best to solve those issues faster. So that's what I always tell back, tell people is, you came here for knowledge, we gave you this knowledge, here's what you say back to them to get, that resolution, that treatment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. And that's the thing, right? Doctors don't have the time. So,
They don't. Yeah. So doctors are experts in medicine. Women are the experts in themselves. And so when you come in with a well-educated woman and a well-educated doctor, they can put the two together and you can get your goal the fastest possible. So it takes a good relationship between patient and doctor to really hit that goal. And so that knowledge makes you the best educated version of yourself. And what we talked about was finding a good doctor makes that piece good. And so that's going to be the most successful situation.
absolutely. And that's a, that's why we launched, I say we're a small team, but we launched Hormone University was effectively with that goal, so that people could go to the doctor already knowing, okay, this is what's going on. And this is not just some random Google search. Everything has been researched. And so, yeah, definitely that's the goal. We're also doing other things, like we want to make, the US is a particular country when it comes to healthcare, right? So things like the tampon tax, which I was quite amazed about, right? That, I mean, we spend thousands in period care. So we're like, we need to do something about this. So we launched a petition to eliminate the tampon tax in the states where it's still there. I'm like, who thought that period care is a luxury item? That's the classification that, I mean, it's, of course, it had, nothing against men, but had to be someone who didn't have a clue, So.
Yeah, I mean, healthcare is kind of broken in general, but the standard of care for a woman to get reproductive services is to have trying for 12 months or have had 3 miscarriages. And I'm like, whoever thought of that had to have been a male, because as soon as a female goes through the first miscarriage, they're like, yeah, no, I don't want to have to go through two more to get help.
Oh yeah.
So, it's one of those, men just don't deal with periods, and they don't deal with, you know, pregnancies and pregnancy losses in the way that women do.
Yeah, I read an interview the other day of someone who said if men got periods on a monthly basis, the world would be run by women because and I think that there is probably, we will never know, but it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the other thing we were kind of discussing before we hopped on the video was this idea of funding in women's health. Um, the fact is there's so much innovation that needs to be done in this space. Like, women just don't have the right tools. Um, I have a colleague that's helping to do a non-invasive test for endometriosis. I mean, gone are the days you have to get exploratory surgery to get a diagnosis, right? It's literally like a small biopsy, and then they send it, and it's like you can diagnose it. It's like done, right? We help diagnose problems with ovulation, which are the leading cause of infertility. Hey, this is really powerful information. And so, these kind of things need to be innovated. And there's just lack of funding for these resources because a lot of the funds are managed by men that aren't faced with these challenges. And so here we are, women that are trying to make a difference, and we're bootstrapping. I mean, I invented the thing in my basement 5 years ago. I didn't have a whole bunch of money to kind of, do this. And so we, slowly grew the technology and did more validation, went through FDA clearance and all this stuff, but it took a long time to get to where we are. And you're in a similar situation where it's just, you have a passion to change based off of what you went through. And so I commend you for doing that. And, just letting all the listeners know that it's just so tough to create innovative things, that if you want change, if you don't want there to be a period tax, and if you want better healthcare, support these local companies. And support doesn't mean you have to buy the product. Support means go tell your friend about the product, or repost something that you saw on social media, or whatever. Start the conversation, because it's, these things are very taboo. Nobody wants to talk about their painful periods. Oh, you're a strong woman, just suck it up till next month. No, absolutely not. We've got to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that, Amy. I think, the more we say it as well, the more it's going to become a conscious factor for all women, right? So the one thing you mentioned about us being women founders, and we just need everyone's support, right? And it doesn't cost, like forwarding something to a couple of friends, like all of these little things make a big difference. To us who are like working day and night and trying to do something that will have an impact in society. And I'm so happy you mentioned that. And whoever listens to this, we want to thank you in advance for listening, because that already makes a difference. And yeah, no more suffering in silence, please. I did it. That was not good. And I still remember, Amy, when I sent an article, it was actually front page of one of the leading newspapers in the UK, The Guardian. And I'm like, okay, so I was a partner at this personal care company, and I was the only female partner there. So I was heading global sales and marketing, like traveling everywhere and like opening new markets, and of course, dying with suffering at the same time, right? And sometimes I would sit in meetings and I would be like bending down with pain, looking at my male partners, kind of like, oh yeah, and they would be kind of ignoring, that kind of look of, oof, we don't want to deal with this, like she's got her period. So I remember sending an email saying, this is what I'm going through. And just the link, guess what? He never got back to me. He didn't say, I'm really sorry going through this. Oh my God. Nothing, Emmy, nothing at all. And I want to stop that. I really want to stop that. That is not fair.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy.
Right? Such lack of empathy, right? It's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so you were a very strong individual that put yourself in that situation. Many women won't do that. They'll sit at home, that won't be able to hold a job, they won't be able to do certain things because they're just so much in pain and they don't want to let that part of them out, right? They're like, I can't leave my house and go to a board meeting because I'm in so much pain. And it prevents them from being their best self, right? From getting that job that they want, going on that date that they wanted to go on, or whatever it is, right? And so, what you're doing is helping so many women. And so it's amazing because there's so many people that, I mean, my
yeah. I still get a little bit emotional thinking about what you just said, Amy. It's no one deserves that, you know. No one should go through that. No one. It's unfair, and so it's heartbreaking. The people that get in touch with us now to say, "Oh my God, I didn't know about this. Thank you," or you know what, inspired me to, I'm going to tell my team, let's do a post about talking in the workplace. I think we're going to do that. We have to be we have to speak up for ourselves. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One time, as a little bit off topic, but still kind of on topic, I had the pleasure of going to P&G headquarters. So in
Procter
Cincinnati,
and Gamble, yeah.
makers of Always and Tampax.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving the meeting and going to the restroom, and it was like the best restroom I could possibly
I
imagine.
can
Because it was
imagine.
stocked with like Bounty and Charmin and Tampax and Always, and it was like this. I was like, oh my god! Could you imagine if that's where you worked? And it was like you didn't have to worry about like stuffing a tampon in your pocket and run into the bathroom. It was like there and ready for you. It was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I actually worked for a competitor of Procter. So I know how these corporations work. And I remember the bathrooms, man, they were great. I used to get beautiful free shampoo and all these creams. And so, yeah, or asking your like colleague, hey, do you have a tampon?
Right.
Dying of like, oh God, like being terrified that your pants are gonna get stained. And yeah.
Yeah. Do you do anything with adolescent girls that are going through puberty? Do you have any education and stuff on that?
Yeah, we're going to actually work on educating more on everything that's PMS. And we just did a series on PMS and PMDD and birth control. So yeah, it's a big topic for us because it all starts there, right? At around, on average, is 12 years old, right, when we get our period. So we find extremely important to educate from as early as possible. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, this could be a whole other podcast, but I think women that are going, these young girls that are going through puberty, they're getting put on hormonal contraception now, and it's like their body doesn't even know how to ovulate, and it's like messing us up. Like, I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I'm like, okay, we need to like hurry up with this innovation train because I'm not going to be putting her on this when she's coming of age. Like, it's just not going to happen because I think that's what made me infertile. Like, I'm N1, but I hear so many other stories that it messes with the body's ability to regulate its own hormones. It's like you cannot take birth control to fix PCOS, endometriosis, whatever. It's a band-aid of some sorts. It's not a fix.
Band-aid.
It's a really bad band-aid at that.
It's a really bad band-aid, absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned this again, because last week when we did, 2 weeks ago when we did birth control, we were doing the research, and I'm like, dig deeper, because we need to show people about side effects. And I think that the medical community sometimes, because of lack of time, and again, I'm not, maybe I have to be careful with what I say, but I'm very frustrated with the brainwashing coming from the pharma industry. And this might sound controversial, but I stand by it. And so, how many times they stopped my periods, with injections, with birth control methodologies, didn't help me at all, at all.
No.
It's just like very bad band-aid. And don't get me started. I mean, I have a very strong opinion about this. So.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. The part that I struggle with is unintended pregnancy is very, very hard on children, right? And so we have contraceptives that are hormonal are not good. And then you have unintended pregnancy is also not good, which is like the lesser of the evils. And both of them you don't want. And so there's something in the middle that we have to do. We have to have a system that's not going to mess our children up, but it's also going to be to help them not have this unintended pregnancy, right? And so that's that innovation piece that I'm like, okay, you guys have like 5 years, get on it.
Yeah, totally. And I think at the moment it's, there are all these apps to track your cycle, and but are they going to be kind of what's the word, disciplined, right, at that age?
You can't expect a 12-year-old to do that kind of stuff. That's the problem. You can expect her to go in and get an IUD in and not have to worry about it. That you can expect a 12-year-old to do, but
yeah, it's a tough one, I have to say. Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is. But I'm glad you're tackling topics like this. It's just not easy to talk about, especially when your ideas don't match someone else's ideas. So having a place like Hormone University that has all this information curated in one section where you can take that and say, hey, doctor, I don't want an X or I want Y, is so powerful. So
Right.
thank you for everything that you're doing. Very, very much needed.
Thank you so much.
If you could tell our listeners where to find you.
Yeah, thank you. So we are on Instagram at Hormone University altogether, and our website, which we just relaunched, and it's kind of very dynamic, and you find all the latest articles and everything, is hormone-university.com.
Awesome. And I will link that too. I think it's just it's so powerful to have this information. So
yeah.
Anyways, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciated it. I know the listeners are going to enjoy going to the website and learning about all these different things. So thank you for taking your struggle and turning it around to something powerful for other women.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.